Hello and welcome to Dancers Support Mission by Sabine for Shine Your Light. We have a new episode of Dancer to Dancer, Words of Wisdom today. And this platform was created to meet the person behind the dancer and share with you all not only the highlights of someone's career, but also the challenges behind the scenes. Truly, my wish is to bring healing into the dance world, dancing to heal, healing to dance, one artist at a time and one personal story at a time. I do believe that storytelling gives us an opportunity to learn from another person's experience, and it can shape, strengthen, or challenge our opinions and values. Hopefully, this will allow you to embark or reflect on your own personal healing journey, inspired by others' experiences. And of course, if you find those interviews valuable, please share them with your friends. So today I'm really happy to welcome April Ball. April, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me. It has been quite a, ping pong trying to meet together, right? We were both very busy. So I'm really happy that you could make it. We met a long time ago in Boston, so we have a history together. And well, I'm delighted to know everything about you, everything you wish to share. So let's start from the beginning. Would you tell me first, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So would you tell me how you started dancing, when, why? And the most important question is, when did you decide that this would be like a profession for you?
So my first encounter with dance was going to a performance of the Nutcracker. My aunt and uncle gave me an early Christmas present, a ticket to the Nutcracker with them, and we had seats in the balcony. We were the very first row of the balcony, so we had one of those velvet bars right in front to not fall over. And so I had to stand. I was 4 years old, and I stood basically the entire show to watch. I was so excited. And I still have memories of that show. I remember watching the Grand Pas de Deux. It was a performance of Pittsburgh Ballet Theatre. And from that moment, that's when I knew I would be a professional dancer. In my little head, in my little brain, in that moment, I thought, oh, this is what I want to do. And if I was doing it, I would do it like this. And I would like to dance this role. And I was already 100% bunhead without ever having seen ballet before. But to encourage me further, they also knew someone who had just opened a dance school. But it was one of the dance schools in America that wasn't strictly ballet. So I started out doing jazz and tap dancing and baton twirling and ballet with a huge group of, I don't know, it seemed like 100 kids. Divided into groups in a big room. And I, at 7, went to a different school who had also just opened up, Pittsburgh Youth Ballet, who was run by Jean Guédillon at the time. And that was really my start in learning actual ballet, in being guided by someone who is just terrific, had her own dance career and offered us as students a lot of varied opportunities. We did everything in that school. She would drop stuff on us, like we would pass a sign that said, upstairs there are auditions for Les Miserables, and we would just go and sing a song. And so I got a lot of experience with her as a teacher from 7 until I was with her many, many years. I think I stopped with her when I was maybe 12 or so. I was also going to Pittsburgh Ballet Theatre School in parallel from probably 10 years old, 9 or 10. I was also going to that school, so doing kind of double duty. And then I went at 13 to Roberto Munoz, who was in a university at Point Park University, who was my coach and mentor for many years. With him, we learned, I say we because my brother, who is 2 years older than me, is also a dancer. And with Roberto,
Simon, and I wanted to do an interview with the two of you, but it was difficult to make it happen. So unfortunately, it would have been fun to see your parallel, roots. But
it's an interesting thing to train with one's brother. Also, I think it's not unique because I know of many other brothers and sisters, or sisters together or brothers together. But we have other brothers and sisters as well. It's just the two of us that were drawn to dance. And we actually, with Roberto Munoz, trained and were coached to go to 2 competitions in which we won medals. And that was our overture to the world of professional dance, because through that we met directors and got contracts and started out with Boston Ballet directly
both
after
of you in
winning.
the same company, right? Which is also
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, we got that opportunity through Bruce Marks, who was the president of the jury in Jackson, Mississippi. My brother in that competition won a gold medal. I won a silver medal. In another competition, we both won gold medals, and Bruce was a wonderful first director to have. Unfortunately, we didn't have him for long. He was leaving Boston as we were coming in. And yeah, that was my training. So I had basically mostly Vagana based, because that was her main training. But we were always learning Balanchine technique. I would go to summer schools in SAB with Roberto Munoz. He had a great summer program at the time that was also a place where I learned. We had flamenco classes. I had Dunham, which is African technique. We had, of course, contemporary dance. And I feel like I have this sort of American education that's incredibly varied. That's to me very rich
and also very lively. This is what it's like the American version of character dancing, in the in the Eastern world somehow. But it's so enriching for young kids to do this actually before they actually do ballet, because then they learn how to really loosen up and express themselves fully, right?
And I never felt, as much as ballet was definitely my big passion, I never felt constrained to not be able to say yes when other opportunities came up. So during my career, when I was in Boston Ballet, I loved doing new works. I loved doing contemporary, although we didn't do as much as I later did. I was able to adapt to Balanchine easily. I was able to adapt, of course, the classics. That was my first passion and love. And then later going in my professional career to Monte Carlo, where I was introduced to much more contemporary work, lots more improvisation. I feel like I could still fall back on my American training to know that, yeah, I can try this. I can jump into this. It doesn't matter if I don't know it now, I can learn it. So
that's where, because you spent a long time actually with the Ballet de Monte Carlo, right?
I was exactly after Boston Ballet. I did 1 year touring the US with Suzanne Farrell, which was strictly Balanchine rep. And then I went to Les Ballets de Monte Carlo, and I stayed there for 19 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So incredibly long career of 9 years in Boston, 1 year with Suzanne, and 19 years in Monte Carlo. So add those up.
The number, that's a long career, long dancing career, resilient,
Yes.
So what would you say was the biggest challenge that you had, not only as a dancer, as a professional, maybe also as a student,
One of the things that made my career as a student challenging is that my parents were not dancers. We had no introduction to the dance world. My mom really, she doubted herself a lot because she didn't know what she was doing. And as a mother, she wanted to make the right choices and just tried to follow as best she could, making honest decisions as she went along. Luckily, it worked very well. And I owe her and my parents, my whole family, my grandparents as well. I owe them my world because they were so dedicated in driving my brother and me back and forth. We grew up in the countryside, so it would be hour-long travels each way. So 1 hour to get there, 1 hour to get back. And they were doing 2 hours each My mom would drop us off, my dad would pick us up. So it was a lot of
Commitment.
sacrifice for that. And my mom would stay with us in the summers for up to 5 weeks at a time. And my baby sisters didn't love that. But they all made sacrifices for us, which I'm incredibly grateful to them. Yeah. So them not really knowing it, we also relied a lot on scholarships, which luckily worked, because otherwise we would not have been able to pay for such an expensive hobby, such an expensive training. And I know that's something that holds a lot of people back. I mean, I was the kid that was wearing my point shoes for 6 months, a year at a time, because that's what we could afford. But
you make them last.
Yeah, you make it work, you know. When we were in SAB, where looking back on it now, it sounds crazy, but you know, we were like picking up aluminum cans because they're worth 5 cents and putting them into these machines that would give you 5 cents in return, so we could like get a snack or buy dinner, which sounds really horrible, but it wasn't at the time, because it's just a big adventure when you're young.
Yeah, exactly. Plus
big
it's
adventure.
creative, you know, I mean, you made it work.
We did. We made it work. And we were repaid handsomely with having both my brother and I had long and beautiful careers.
And still going, you know, I mean, it's not the end, it's the beginning of.
Oh, it's changed. The stage part is done. The stage part, unless it's something much less classical. Yeah, it's finished.
NDT3.
Exactly. Those, but I look now at opportunities for older dancers as something really wonderful, because it's true. I've seen performances of NDT3, which is the older dancers that have a different performance experience, and it was amazing to me. I loved it. I loved watching it.
And Pina Bausch, I mean, you know, it's still, you know. But I mean, if you said this was a challenge, you know, not being, I mean, how did you feel actually about that? You know, that your mother was so uncertain. I mean, you had your line, right? I suppose that you knew what you wanted, but how did you deal with that? You know, inside as a little girl, and you know.
I didn't. I mean, that aspect of it didn't worry me when I was a girl, because you're so trusting. I think as a kid, we just got lucky, and that's what I think is the moral of that story. We fell upon people like Roberto Munoz, who gave us an amazing amount of time and energy, and guided us so holistically as human beings and as dancers, as young people. He helped us so much. And I think that was luck. We happened to be in the same city. We happened to find him. So that plays a big factor into it. Of course, then you have to provide the hard work, but luck does have something to do with it. If
luck or synchronicity, you know, maybe it's just meant to be. So things just fold into.
And like I said, you make it work. Maybe if we didn't have that luck, we might have had luck later on by finding a great job, even though we didn't have the training and training later. I feel lucky to have had a great training that provided me with an enormous foundation for when I did arrive at a professional level, that I felt like I could tackle the problems that were in that company. It wasn't like I didn't have the coaching. That's the difference for me. That's what competitions gave me as well, is that coaching element, that I had a jump on some people that had just been in schools that didn't have the ability to be privately coached. So that helped me a lot when I did arrive to be a professional.
Okay. And I know that you're studying right now. So would you tell us a little bit about that and what you want to do with it?
Sure. So let's see, when I was a professional dancer, a lot of people mentioned, you know, furthering education. I even was a member of the Dancers Resource Fund in Boston Ballet, which was a dancers association to put money towards dancers' education. So we would do events, performances, or whatnot to raise funds to help dancers pay for their education. I actually never used that money. I waited until I was long gone and not eligible anymore. But I put off most of my education until I was nearing the end of my career, because I thought that was the most valuable moment to really decide with the person I was at that moment what I should do. I went back to school for business administration because I wanted to explore the exact opposite of what I felt I was doing as an artist. I had a lot of artistic experiences, very rich in professional artistic experience, but I wanted to know what the other side of a company does, or what other opportunities might lie outside dance. So I did a couple of years of business administration courses online with a university, Northern Arizona University. And I discovered a passion for leadership studies. And there is a wonderful program at the University of Pennsylvania in leadership and communications, which I transferred into. I hadn't been able to because there was some hybrid necessities, shall we say. I had to be in Philadelphia, which I couldn't make happen until later on. And then I also added positive psychology. So I double majored in leadership and positive psychology. So positive psychology is the scientific study of thriving as groups or as individuals. So there's actually a bunch of research out there on how we can not just live and sort of survive, or not even how we can just overcome sickness or mental health issues, but how we can go from being okay to being amazing and flourishing and really living our best lives. So positive psychology is a growing field, relatively new, and something I've loved studying. I am getting my degree in 2 weeks. I'm going to go to Philadelphia to accept my.
In which way is it different from normal psychology?
Normal psychology is basically this study and helping people that have had problems. If you imagine like sea level, there are people that feel like they are having issues. They're not normal, they're depressed, they might have some more serious issues. Positive psychology says that's normal psychology. We've done that for decades, almost centuries. We've been studying what goes wrong. Now, can we also study what goes right? Can we look at the things that are going right and the places where people feel, wow, this made a huge jump in my happiness, in my well-being. Also physical, it does have something to do with thriving physically as well, because when we are thriving emotionally, we do have a better physical health as well. So it's basically the study of that. So it's adding.
It's expanding the imagination as well, right? Because I mean, you know, our imagination can create everything in our life. And it's true, if you concentrate only on the negative, well, you know, there's a big chance that you're going to have a little bit more of that as well.
And it's also an incredible pity to think that just by getting everybody back up to zero, that's enough. Because as human beings, you can see how resilient we are from things like the pandemic. We've found a way to actually get past that, to get through that. Human beings are incredibly resilient. So why not boost ourselves up as much as we can and not settle for, yeah, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
There are ways, they're just small, subtle, and scientifically studied ways that we can actually boost ourselves. And I think as dancers, that's something that speaks to us a lot.
Yeah, that would be
amazing. We're going from like normal human being to amazing athlete and artist. So we're really pushing our boundaries that just, you know, just being a normal person, going out dancing in clubs, which is fun. We're pushing it to a whole nother level. So I think we're also searching for ways to make these tiny differences in our lives that can actually be huge when you're talking about a professional dancing group.
How do you like, what kind, I mean, if somebody wanted to come and see you, you know, what would be the reason they would come and see you then?
In positive, with the positive
Yeah,
psychology?
and like as a dancer, for example, you know.
Performance coaching. It's really a matter of people that are ready to learn tools. I won't say tricks, but for me, I often thought of it like my magic hat. That's one of the ways I lasted personally so long in a dance career. When I saw people with honestly more talent, better bodies, more physical talent, had all these things, but somehow I lasted longer than them. They kind of dropped out along the way. Was these techniques and these tools of resilience, of being able to bounce back, of being able to rebalance my scales.
But isn't that leveling to zero, you know, bounce back, and you know what I mean?
Yes and no, because in those moments in our career where we do start to feel like I'm overwhelmed, I'm burnt out, we do need to get back up to zero, but then we're hoping to go even a little higher. You know, and this is always happening in our career. So
Dance,
it's
yeah,
knowing, having, for me, like I said, it felt like a magic hat. Like I would stick my hand down and say, okay, what can I pull out to help me today? Because today I'm having this challenge. I might have to pull out 3 things before I got to the one that worked that day. But those kind of techniques and tools get you through the moments when you're struggling a little bit, or even when you're just feeling like, all right, I'm doing this thing. I have this career. It's okay. But then what do I need to push me now to the next level? And with still the understanding that the downs, the lows are normal. They are necessary and they're okay. It's just knowing how
they can propulse you also,
balance.
you know, up again, because it's like it's an incentive, you know, to do something.
It can be if you use it that way.
Yeah.
If you're going to use it as a tool, as a technique to say, okay, now I'm down. This is how it feels.
Yeah.
Now I don't feel this way. Now I'm going to get back. Some people don't. Some people use it as a tool to kind of spiral downwards. So,
you know, it's funny because I always had this in my career, thinking when I was feeling so good and high on something, I was thinking, oh my God, you know, I can only go down now, you know. And I was like scared of it until one day I decided, no, I mean, then I'm not even enjoying when I'm high up there, you know. And it changed everything, because I still went up and down, but at least I made the most out of that moment where it felt good, instead of dreading, you know, the moment where it was going to go down. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because life is also has a rhythm, right? It's not always up, up, up. It's like a wave, you know. It's like riding the waves, basically learning how to ride them.
yeah. And I as I got older in dance, it was such a beautiful journey for me, because as a younger dancer, even as a younger person, I would think like, oh God, I don't want to be that 25-year-old. I don't want to be that 30-year-old, because look at what they can't do. Like I'm hanging out with my friends, I'm doing all these fun things. And then, you know, you can't go to parties when you're 30. And then I hit 30 and I realized, you know what? I don't want to go to parties. I'm really good the way I am now at 30, doing the things I love at 30. And then when I was 35, the same. And I thought like, I would never have thought I would have danced till 40, let alone 44.
This is quite an achievement, because, you know, not many people make it till that time, right? Well, while having a baby too, you know, I mean.
Yeah, the baby actually helped. That was another unexpected. I thought having a child would destroy my body, and actually did the opposite. But you know, I had my injuries and I had my things, but my body did manage, which was a gift. But I just found ways to appreciate the different times, to accept like, well, yeah, this is actually how I feel good now. And it's different than when I was 21. It's so different, but it's not better or worse. You know, it's just what it is right now. So you come to that acceptance, and still giving your maximum and still, you know, pushing your limits.
You were also in an environment where that was actually more possible, I think, you know, because in some classical company, it's quite brutal, you know. It's like when you start aging and, you know, it's like a very clear message, you know. And this doesn't help you to keep on thriving. It just makes you understand that, you know.
Yes, I would say yes and no. My company at Les Ballets de Monte Carlo is definitely not a company where you sit on your laurels. Mm-hmm. It's a company where you are reassessed constantly, where you are constantly challenged to, I don't want to say maintain your place, but nobody has a set place. Mm-hmm. It's not a company where you become a principal and then you say, yeah, okay, well, now I do these principal roles. They are my roles. I am always first cast, and that's it. You're constantly put into question in a healthy way, in a way where you're required to merit what you're getting. So I never felt lethargic, and I never felt like, yeah, it was just a trophy on a shelf. It was something I was constantly working at, which is what I love to do. I love to be pushing my limits. It's part of who I am. I love to have a lot of things on my plate or have a new challenge. So yeah, it was, although like the part of what you said, which is true, is it didn't require the physical attributes that a classical company would require, in the sense that I didn't have to do 32 fouettes every night doing a 3 or 4 act Swan Lake. Our repertoire is a bit different. It's incredibly difficult, but a different kind of difficult.
Yeah.
So whereas we had to have a strong technique, it had a different feeling in the body so that I could still contribute. And something that Jean-Christophe Maillot really requires a lot is the understanding of roles, the musicality, and being able to transmit something in a performance. And those are things that we can
that
maintain.
Comes with maturity as well.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So this is, maturity is a plus, not a handicap. You know what I mean? Which is, in certain company it is. It's like, you know, you've reached that state, and well, you know, like what I'm saying is that it's such a, it's like a stamp on you, basically. You know what I mean? Even if you're still at your best or whatever, it's like, oh, you reached 30, 35, you know, that's going to become a problem, which is really hard, you know, mentally, for people who still want to do it. Well, no, I'm still fine, you know.
Absolutely. It's a big problem. It's a big issue, shall I say, in the States. I feel like a lot of people are pushed out before they get to be the artists that they could be, even technically, because people are scared that they're not going to be physically capable. And that comes down also to, unfortunately, the state of funding in the United States as compared to Europe. Things are just a bit more stable in Europe, so there is a bit more grace, I feel.
Yes and no, you know, because in Germany, you know, with the fact that they had contracts for life, and then since they couldn't get rid of someone who was 60 and was still on payroll, they decided that after 13 years, you would have to, you know, be gone, because otherwise, you know, and that's lethal, you know, for someone who's had a full career. 13 years is where you start, you know, being full possession of all your tools, you know.
Yeah, especially if that was your first job.
Yeah. So it's interesting, you know, how on each side, you know, what should be looked at, basically, you know, for dancers to actually thrive, because I think that's one of the biggest problem for dancers to thrive. It's like we feel that there's no time, you know, it's like tick tick tick. So if we could take that out, you know, that stress, it would be really.
So much of our career is out of our hands. What the director is going to choose for next year's season and what roles you're going to be able to dance in that season, it's completely out of your hands. You have no say in what your repertoire is going to be if you have a contract in a company. Sure, you can move companies, but you know, those things are year to year. You don't really know what opportunities are going to be presented to you. That's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
and very stressful when you do want to achieve your maximum amount of things within maybe a 10, 12, hopefully 20, or maybe like me, 28. But you also have to understand that, you know, being that older dancer, I can tell you, you're never going to have enough. It's never going to be, you're always going to want to do more. You might get to the point where you say like, this hurts too much, I'm stopping, or I can't handle the stage fright, I'm done with this. You know, like I said, I've seen many dancers do that. I just had this way of always seeing the good in things, and always kind of enjoying myself more than not enjoying myself. And when it was painful, it was just like a cool challenge to me. Like, this is so painful, this is so terrible. How can I get through this now? Let me see.
Okay, so
And
getting through this and thriving, is that the same?
Partially, it's a step in the process, because that's what you have to do. Sometimes it's just, okay, I'm gonna accept the fact that I'm not going to enjoy this process with this choreographer who's being so incredibly demanding, and it's too much and it's not helping me, but that's what it is. And I'm just gonna close my mouth or grit my teeth or do whatever I need to do, because it's gonna pass, you know, and there are things that I can learn from it, and there are things that I can take after the fact, and there are things, even ways I might be able to enjoy it, even if it's just to have a bonding moment with my colleagues and over this, you know, tough experience that we're all having together. That can be beautiful and can be one of the best things actually in your life. One of the things you remember the most might be that really terrible choreographer that, you know, made your life so difficult for those 3 months. It could be, and there's nothing wrong with that experience also.
Yeah, it's about really recognizing what is good in your moment, you know, I mean, in the present moment. And it's true that as dancers, we have a tendency to overlook that, you know, because we're always looking for much more better. As you say, it's never enough. So more efficient, better, you know, more productive. So yeah, it's a recipe for misery, you know. Yeah. So, so it's good to have some tools to get back to, you know, wait. Let's actually look at the situation the way it could be looked at as well, you know. It's like the aquarium, you know, we look at the aquarium on one side, and do we actually go around? If the aquarium is in the wall, you will never see the other side of the aquarium, but everybody has a different vision of the aquarium. And within ourselves, we could have that too, you know, if we pay attention.
Yeah, and there's one thing I want to add is that what I'm saying is not that we should accept abusive situations and be like, no, actually it's fine. Like, no, there is a point where it's not okay. And there are things that you shouldn't accept. And there might be a moment where you need to accept it because, you know, I'm getting out of here. You know, this is the point where I understand I need to go. But it's now that I've made that decision, I don't expect people to stay in a bad situation. It's just that understanding that things will always pass, and just seeing, is there a way I can look at this in a positive way? And understanding as a dancer also, sometimes it can be fun to role play. And I think there's so many things that I didn't understand as a young dancer. And when you start to go on the other side of the studio, things become apparent. Like, you don't necessarily have, you know, an ironclad self-assurance as a teacher or as a choreographer or as a director.
It's true.
They're also only able to do so much. And maybe they chose this ballet, maybe they regret choosing the ballet. Maybe the choreographer doesn't know what he's doing that day or she's doing that day, and they're feeling really insecure about it. And understanding, like, trying to see things from other people's points of view also.
I think that's crucial, actually, and that's what young dancers lack, because we're not taught this as well, right? And it comes with experience. I think it's really important what you just said. Yeah.
And that's why I say role play, because I don't expect anybody, and especially not a 16-year-old or even a 20-year-old, to really understand everybody's point of view. It's not possible, one. And just a silly thing to ask of people. But what we can do is maybe role play, maybe just for 5 minutes, put yourself in their position, but really in their position. And think about, for example, for a director, like if they think about you as much as you think they think about you, imagine them having to do that for 20 other dancers or 50 other dancers. It's like not humanly possible that they're planning out your whole career path. So it's up to you also to plan your career path. It's up to you to say, hey, look, I feel like I need more. Is that possible? What do you think? It's up to you to maybe have a meeting sometimes because they can't think of you all the
I
time.
think that's very beautiful. You completely, yeah, I really like what you just said. This is very important for young dancers so to hear that, right? So, April, this is wonderful conversation, but we're going to have to wrap it up. So, as a finishing line, would you tell us, if you had one advice to give to a young dancer, what would that be?
Oh, enjoy yourself in every way. Inside the studio, outside the studio, know that every moment is very precious, but don't let that put pressure on you. Just enjoy it and accept every step that comes along. It's all very beautiful. Coming from where I am now, I can tell you it's an amazing career. And even if you don't dance as a professional, having this experience is life-changing and will always be part of who you are.
That's beautiful. Okay, well, thank you so much. I hope I can catch Simon at some point.
I hope so too.
Thank you very much, April.
You're welcome. Thank you.